Good evening, it's 5:32. I'll call to order the Mount Vernon School Board meeting for Thursday, February 15th. Thank you. We have a couple of teachers in attendance. Thank you. And we are currently like one board member, George, I have not heard from, so hopefully he will make it, or Texas, one or the other, but we will press on. I will read the procedure for public comment. We will take public comment tonight from our virtual audience. If you wish to speak during the public comment sessions, we will allow in-person guests to speak for 3 minutes first. Once we go through all of our in-person guests, we will then open it up for virtual speakers on Zoom. In order to speak, please do the following: raise your virtual hand, enter your full name and your avatar profile. When speaking, turn your camera on and say your full name and town of residence. And when those are complete, you will have 3 minutes to speak. And we welcome Mr. Torres to the chamber.
Do you want to come down this side?
Maybe we can just come out here. Okay, hang on with you guys. Yeah.
Hi, George. Before I move to the next item on the agenda, I'm going to insert an agenda item from myself and the other board members. So we're a little bit out of tune, and I'm going to read this so I get it right. Well, our board would like to recognize Sarah Lawrence for an incredible 9-year run here on the school board. We're going to miss you. And I'm just going to read now.
Okay, go ahead.
I would like to take this opportunity to recognize and thank Sarah Lawrence. Tonight will be her last meeting as a Mount Vernon School Board member. Sarah has been an integral part of the board for 9 years, with 6 years as chairperson.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. She has always brought such passion for the children, teachers, staff, and the little hill up on the hill. She has been a strong voice representing our town at the SAU meeting as well, making sure that our goals and needs never get lost in the SAU. One of her many specialties while serving has been to chair and be part of the policy committees on the SAU board, while also taking the lead for us here on the Mount Vernon board. It is very detailed and at times tedious, my word, not hers, job to keep our policies up to date and aligned with state of New Hampshire policy too. She has excelled in that role. Sarah has also devoted countless hours to contract negotiations for teachers and Mount Vernon's contracted agreement with Amherst. For me personally, she has been a wonderful coach, a trusted colleague, and a good friend. Sarah, you will be missed greatly. The town of Mount Vernon has been very fortunate to have you serve on the board for these past 9 years, but we're also fortunate to have you and your family as a part of our community. We need more like you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll open it up to anybody else that wants to say a few words. If you would like to say a few words.
Oh, thank you. Something I'll kill. Thank you. I'll try not to kill. Thank you. Thank you for the nice words. And it's been my pleasure and honor to serve your community and yeah, it's been my pleasure and my honor to serve here and serve with all of you and to do great things up here. So thanks for giving me the opportunity. I don't know if we can go after that, but that's really why we're here as well. So,
Absolutely.
and not just for Sarah, but for all of you, but especially Sarah, because we know your dedication for the last 9 years. Thank you. We know that it's really a thankless job. We know that when we see the reminders of saying is there anyone who wants to run, and we hear crickets, and I know lives are busy and we appreciate that. It's not always easy and you devote so much time to us, and our membership appreciates all of you. So, I'll read this little card, and I don't know, maybe you'll keep it. I don't know. It's like your kids giving you art and you keep it on the refrigerator, but it's
But not really.
quite. She might toss it, but she won't toss it.
Don't tell us.
It's Mitten in the Stars. We love you. Thank you for all that you do for the staff, the students, and the families of the Mount Vernon Village School. the members, love the members of the Mont Vernon Education Association, and it was literally signed by all of us. And so this is for all of you, but if you want to keep it as a remembrance.
You can trade it off, like pass it off, you know.
Yeah.
So this is trade off.
Thank you very much. And what's most special about that, because Maggie won't say, is Maggie made that.
She's an artist.
Yeah.
She has her own kiln and
I
everything.
was gonna say that she is.
No, she has one in her home. She made
It was
this
burning
kiln.
today.
But no, I didn't.
Cool.
Phenomenal.
So you'll always think of us
I
when
will.
you put flowers in it. And then for everyone else, please ignore that it probably is food that you don't ordinarily eat, but let's say after last week, you all deserve it. So, and we have blue baskets for all of our school board friends, and we have white baskets for all of you. So thank you so much.
But they're pretty much the
same.
Fine.
That
I
was
didn't know you were
actually yours.
yours. I'm sorry, I made these, but they're not.
Thank you. Probably is.
Are you sure you don't want to?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Boy, here.
You vaguely remember last year, we started to eat over the meeting was.
Well, and I haven't had bugs, so it's tough.
Sneak out like a bandit.
He's a teenager that can eat.
These will be.
My favorite
Yes.
from childhood.
I'm gonna admit that I have one here.
And,
You have.
Okay.
I don't even know.
No,
what
this one's mine. No, I didn't know they had names on them. They do
That's how
have-
we
oh, I
start
didn't
now.
realize, sorry about that.
No, you did great.
He's most of these, I gave them, I didn't know that thing. I didn't know that.
When I turned 40, they had a party for me and everyone that came had snowballs. and
Well, you'll have balls.
And so. I don't know. I won't tell you who got the snowballs, but they decided they were almost gonna bring a package home and they decided no. Because
Thank you.
they would eat them all.
Oh,
So
yeah.
thank you all
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I hope we see you around.
I will try to
Okay.
come up, maybe in budget season especially.
Would you like a
Sure.
hug? I just feel like I wanna hug you.
Yeah.
Okay. And don't be sad.
I will, I will.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been quite a 9 years.
Are those Tom's?
Yeah.
If you think back of
It has been.
like 9 years having.
Your eyeglasses?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Door open or closed?
Open.
Thank you. Thank you, that was fun. We should do food thanks more often.
No.
So our next item on our agenda tonight is the consent agenda. There are 4 items. First one is the January 3rd draft minutes and facilities. The second is the January 10th draft minutes and facilities. The third item is the January 10th draft minutes for the public hearing. And then the fourth is January 16th, 2024 draft minutes. I'll take a motion to accept those 4 items in the consent agenda.
I'll make such motion.
I have a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, second by Ms. Lawrence. Open up to questions or comments on any of those agenda items 1 through 4. Hearing none, those are accepted. Next on our agenda is reports. Do we have to vote?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right. Take a vote to accept the consent agenda. All those in favor? Stay. One abstention from Mr. Torres, so it passes. Thank you. Next up, reports. The January principals report. Tom, do you want to skim on that or do you want to?
Sure, I can just, real quick. I always like to hit on our main goals, math, literacy, and the whole child, SEL. Start with math. You saw Charlene here, our math cheerleader and champion. We have been doing, this year, a combination of the push in and pull out, for students, through Charlene. And one of the things that I've seen a lot of this year is, you know, there's an excitement around math here, and that there's really a very unique flavor to the way math and students respond to math. And I can tell you it's unique because having been in other schools, particularly, you know, at the middle school level, this is not something that you see every day. But the way math is, and we, of course, we have the Bridges materials, but the way that math is being responded to by our students, the level of engagement. Yesterday I was in Sarah Millis's room in grade 5. They're making posters with, the different strategies that they have, to solve different problems, so that they are going to a problem and saying, I have 5, 6, 7, 10 strategies in my toolbox, and I'm gonna choose the strategy that best matches the problem, instead of, we're only gonna do an algorithm, or we're only gonna do this. They have a toolbox by grade 5, they are actually going in their toolbox and choosing the strategy that matches the problem. And, you know, as you go up in the grades here, the beauty of K6 is you see that progression. So just, it's really neat this point in the year, where students are really in the groove of the curriculum, the program. Really neat to see that. And this is, you know, this is a chunk of instruction right now. I love the January to February break chunk. So we're in a really good mode of instruction. On the literacy front, you've probably seen the report, Bocopoly continues. One of our goals was to celebrate literacy and to bring an excitement around literacy. And Patty and I, one of our goals this year is, honestly, in the past couple of years, there's been more excitement in the lower grades around some of these things we do. This year, we're seeing a cross section amongst all the grades of students engaging in Bocopoly. And you know, it's a fun thing, it's a gamey thing, but kids are really responding to it. It's going really well. And then on the SEL front, I think I reported out, we are dividing the year into the 4 terms, and each term we are putting a focus on our core values with a SOAR assembly. We had our show respect back in October. It's been a little time. We had a lot of holiday stuff and things, interruptions along the way, but we are planning our next SOAR assembly for next Friday. We have a community member coming into each assembly to talk about the core value. Again, show respect. We had the MV Police Department next week. Friday will be the library is going to come in and talk about others first. And we'll do some exciting spirity things as well. But I'm excited for it, and it's been fun to plan that. Scott Saucier and I are doing some work on that as well. So it's been a good month. Like I said, this has been a great strong chunk of instruction, and we are looking forward to coming up in the next month. We are going to be doing our state assessment in writing. That's coming up in March. Preparing for that. I'm actually very excited to see how our students are doing, because there's definitely a writing vibe in the classrooms in terms of I see students engaging at a deep level around writing, and so actually looking forward to that. So, any questions?
What do you, I'm just curious, what do you think? You mentioned hitting your stride, or the students and staff. Do you sense that happens every post-Christmas / going into the?
I mean, so I always like the chunks of the year that I always feel there's that chunk from September till like November. You know, the holidays, obviously there's become some disruption there, but that chunk in September and October, the chunk in January and February, and then the chunk in March and April, some really solid chunks of instructional time. And so it is pretty typical, but I feel like we're in a really good stride right now with scheduling, with how we're engaging with students. And you know, yeah, there's been some weather, but overall not a lot of interruptions, so it's been nice. It's been really good. Yeah.
Thank you. And then Todd, do you want to slide right into February? Do you have anything to layer in from? You want to highlight it all?
So in terms of the next month, Oh, one other thing I did want to mention was our PTA put on we had a community event last weekend, the Sweetheart Dance, very fun, very fun. Great turnout, a lot of families, and kids had a great time, our sixth graders. Did a little fundraiser for a college school there, so it was great to see our sixth grade team engaged. And thanks to our PTA for planning, they always turn the NPR into something amazing, not that it's not every day, but it was a next level decor in there. So.
Any questions for Tom, comments?
Yeah.
Good. Next two items, principals report from AMS for both December and January. Any questions or comments for?
I did, want to mention that, Chris and Goffey intends on coming to a spring meeting.
Okay.
So that's something that we talked about and, it is on the schedule to make happen.
Okay.
Can I just say one thing about AMS? Tomorrow is our first transition to AMS event. Chris Beatty, counselor from the middle school, is coming down to just sort of start the conversation with students. It's pretty casual, but it's sort of a first step, kind of a face and a name, and just answering some questions, just presenting some general information to
You
students.
bring in Moose?
With that,
Is he bringing?
he's bringing Moose. Moose is always with Chris. Yeah, or Chris is always with Moose.
Yeah. Moose has his own Slack
I think, yeah.
account. Love it.
I wonder if Chris and Moose and Forrest have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next up on our agenda, is staff resignation.
Yes, so if we look in Trello, there's a resignation letter attached to the card. And I was hoping that the board could approve Melanie Monders as special education manager's resignation. She regrettably has decided that she's gonna go do some different things, and she put her resignation. So if we get a approval of that resignation, that will allow us to move forward in the posting and the recruiting process and advertising.
And the last name again is?
Mondor.
Mondor.
Can't get it to open. Is it for the end of the school year? or like-
Yeah, June 30th.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there.
So I'll take a motion to accept the resignation with regret of Melanie Mondor.
Oh, make said motion with regret.
Okay,
I can second.
second by Ms. Lawrence, all those in favor? Or exception by 4 or 5, nothing.
Can I ask if she's going to another school or is she pursuing other?
She's pursuing other options closer to home.
Our next agenda is we have 2 proposals for co-curricular activities, so again, we'll pass the baton over, I guess, to Tom, to let us know what these are. Robotics, talent show.
Yeah, so,
Talent show.
so yeah, first I just wanted to, and I know we've talked quite a bit about different proposals this year. I just wanted to make note of the variety that we've had, and I can, in another report, maybe just give you sort of an overview of what we've done this year, but just to remind you, we have 10 co-curriculars approved through the contract each year, and we will hit 10 this year. We try to space them out over the course of the year. We try to provide variety to our students, and I've been really pleased with the variety and the level of engagement with the kids, high interest things, and everything from STEM to the arts to the flag football we had talked about. There's just been a wide range of things. So this month, I'm bringing to you a part 2 of robotics. I'll start with that. So actually in the back, there's the robotics. The students have actually been building the robots, building the obstacles and the course back there. It's been fun to watch. And this is literally through the Lego robotics program that exists. So they're following that model. It's been great. So this is a part 2. It's hard to do the whole program in 6 weeks. So that's why we're requesting a part 2 on that. And then the second one is the talent show. This is a tradition. We've run the talent show here for quite a while. We have teachers that are gonna, basically facilitate the talent show. There'll be some after-school work with the kids and preparing, and then there'll be a talent show, in the spring, so.
Questions, comments, on these two proposals?
It's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah, and we will, make sure
How
to
many is this out of the 10?
send an invite.
You have a couple left for spring?
I think we're up to 8.
8, so 2 more in the spring.
Two more in the spring.
Perfect.
Yeah, cool.
Now, are these, I'm sorry, are these recurring items annually?
Some are, some aren't. It really depends on the year and the level of interest.
Okay.
The staff are very much listening to the students and what their interests are. Also, Christine's been instrumental in the summer enrichment, and we've been able to sort of, I don't want to say it's an extension of the summer, but we definitely look at the things that pique their interest in the summer and then sort of bridge that into the school year. So it's been some of that, but yeah, this year football was the first time we've ever run the flag football program. There was one, actually, I will say, there was one that we just didn't make it in terms of the timing, but it was a cooking opportunity, so that might circle back. One that we just couldn't time it right, but it's been a variety. It's been a wide range of things and high interest activities for kids,
Excellent.
so.
Excellent. I know my wife, was taking my daughter over to the clay club.
Yeah.
Yeah, she loved it.
Yeah, it's been great, and that kiln is, we've got a lot of use out of the kiln.
A
It was
lot.
running today, it was a nice day for the kiln. Yeah. It's about 15 outside and about 65, 75 inside, so. Yeah, it's been great.
I know you've got the 10, but is robotics popular enough that it would benefit the students to run it like all 4 of those blocks you were talking about earlier? Or is that?
Yeah, I
Is that
mean,
watered down?
so that's a good question. I mean, so again, in my former life, we ran robotics pretty much all year, and we went to the competitions at the middle school level, even higher elementary level. We could be part of those competitions and things like that. That takes quite a bit of prep. Like, we're in February and we're still working on the robots, working on the obstacles. And this is getting into the competition season, so they really need, there's a lot of time that goes into it. So the short answer is yes, absolutely. There's enough interest, there's enough engagement, there's enough time, like it's something that you need a lot of time to really run it. If you want to compete as a school, I'd love to see us get there. But yeah, so the only thing that I have to look at is of 10 co-curriculars over the course of the year is investing 4 of the 10 into Lego robotics. Not that it's not worth that, but that just means it's sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like, what do you wanna? So yeah, it's a great question. It was run by the PTA. It's been run by a number of different, there's been different ways. It's been run in the past by PTA. It's hard to sustain that through volunteers. Just it is, it's pretty demanding. It's knowing sort of the process of like how to get involved in the competitions. You really need to build the program over a little bit of time. So these students right now, if you saw what they were doing, I'll take some videos and put them in a report or something for you to see. But if you saw the things they're doing, I went in here yesterday and, you know, one kid's working on programming the robot, the directions, like, it's not just like Christmas morning building a Lego thing. It's very deep, very thick, like the stuff they're working on. So there's another student working on one of the obstacles, and it's just fun to watch, but it does take a little time to build up to a level where you're ready to go for competitions. So
It's also expensive,
it is.
very
Yeah.
expensive.
The Lego.
The program, the whole program, yeah.
Yeah, the best way for us to do that would be a partnership with like BAE, or my experience is if you can find a partnership with a business that will pony up the, sort of the admission fees and whatever for the competitions, that's a win-win. And so that would be sort of the next step, is finding a partner that we can do that with.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yes. Or what?
Yeah.
District 101.
No, we do look for, but we do look for partners partnerships.
Yeah.
And so if you could send us something, I could forward it.
Yeah.
Presentation.
Talk to our CEO.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. I like it. Makes me feel safe. Yeah.
Is this at the same level when they have like like bot competitions
Mhm.
at SNU? Is that the same?
Well,
It is. This is
Not
the-
high school.
yeah, this is
This isn't
it's like the farm team of
Yeah.
this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We have like a
Filtered
robot
in.
board.
This is a great feeder
Virtual
program.
robotics.
There's
Yeah,
kids who
yeah.
did this
Well,
level
we don't destroy each other. But they,
before they got to
We'll
EMS,
have to
and I mean, it was like
follow.
4 hours weekly for the year.
Yeah.
And parent involvement the entire time.
It's a big
It's a
investment.
lot.
And it's the
It's a
Super Bowl.
lot to do. but
And
it
those
was really
events
great.
are
My son goes every night
unbelievable.
Yeah,
for 4 months. For robotics.
yeah,
It's
it's
a huge program.
It's like,
big,
it's a commitment.
Mhm.
but they
Now,
learn a ton.
do the parents have to, is there, I guess some sort of fee they need to pay or something to help?
Usually just do a lot
Or
of
is that all?
Do a lot of fun.
Yeah, they do fundraising,
Okay.
in my experience, some
And
fundraising.
there's corporate sponsorship, you're right, Tom. Corporate
Mhm.
sponsorship is a big part for robotics. BAE runs
BAE
it.
does the
NASA
Mohegan
does
team.
stuff, even the Army does stuff.
What would be fun, again, in my former life, the high school kids would bring the robot down and show the robot off and do a demo. And, I mean, our kids were eating out of their hand. I mean, the robot can do, like, it's an amazing, the robot the high school kids are making is, so it goes up the chain, right, from the elementary Lego to middle school, and by the time they get to high school, I mean, it's a real deal robot,
It is,
yeah.
it's really cool.
So I'll take, did we already vote on these?
No.
And we got distracted by the robots.
So I'll take a motion to accept the proposal for activities and clubs for Robotics Club Part 2 and Talent Show Club.
I will make that motion.
Second. All those in favor? Passes by nothing. Thank you.
Just get back to the facilities report really quick.
Sure.
Do we have any update on the water stuff that's going on? Like it was like the top thing on the list here, and I just wondered if there was any update.
Do we have to like rehab the well?
Like, do we know?
So. It's working.
Yeah.
It's been working. Honestly, there's been a lot of troubleshooting. So it was sort of like, the first time it was, thought there was some sediment that was going through the filter and stopping the pressure. And again, I'm like, I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn last night, but I can give you the basics on this. And then there was a little more to it than that. And then they replaced a pump. And then, there was sort of a workaround that so they're at a point now where they have a workaround. If it happens again, they have a workaround that keeps us running. All right, so, I mean, we were not there and now we're there, so that's good. So I don't see another situation where we're gonna be a whole day without pressure. You know, I can't sit here and say it's not gonna happen again because it really is a troubleshoot. They're confident that the latest troubleshoot is sticking now, it's working. So, I've never had so much pleasure in flushing a toilet in my life the last few weeks, but no, it's going okay the last few days, so that's where we
So
are.
thankfully, it doesn't sound like it's a well issue, it's more of the, if there's a well issue, it's a little bit more concern.
It sounds like it's a pump, and then through the filter system, a pump.
Yeah, because once the stuff starts shutting down, it starts sucking in sediment, which is why you're probably blowing out all the sediment,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
sounds like it's been a lingering thing, but as long as it's not a well issue, then, yeah, eventually it'll. If you replace everything, then that should solve it, but.
And they did, the filter, when it filled with sediment, that was because they actually believe, the pump may have shifted and started pulling sediment up,
Yeah.
but when they replaced the filter, Roger had them put a double-sized filter on, so it's even larger. So even if it does pick up some sediment,
Yeah.
he feels that we would still have adequate, flow through the filter.
Yeah, probably may have shifted because you could sometimes have,
There was an
Like-
earthquake in Concord.
yeah, because there is a casing, but it doesn't go all the way down.
Yeah,
But the well pump sits well below that, so if you have rocks or stuff that fall inside, that kicks up sediment, or if the pump is like way too low in the
Mhm.
well, but it sounds like that's already been looked at, so it's probably just, once you get all this cleaned up, you should be fine.
yeah, it's definitely been, like the booster pump lost its prime and they reprimed it and then it was working again. They just weren't sure, with these issues, they felt that, they had assurances it was working, then it slowed down again and.
Yeah, cause you
they've been
guys have a
continuing.
tank, a whole new tank, correct?
Yeah, I don't know
Yes.
how large, but yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, cause that would be more
They're-
equipment.
they're the large ones.
It's in that water closet.
Yeah, they're actually really large.
Yeah, then it's probably an equipment issue rather than well, because if it was a well, when you
Yeah.
put down as quick, you're still pulling it from the tank, so yeah, okay. That's,
Yeah, the work's all been centered in the water room, around the tank and the filter and pump.
So just a mental note for us. I mean, that may be something we may have to slide up in the facilities repair
Yeah.
queue versus whatever else we have positions. We may need to.
Yes.
do we know how long that equipment has been around?
Parts of it have been replaced over the years. I'm not sure if there's ever been like a overhaul. Roger would be able to share more about that. I know that he's had some ongoing concerns with all of that equipment. I know there was discussion maybe about a year or so ago around that. So it might be something we have to look at accelerating and replacing, more of the system.
More pieces.
Mhm.
Talked about bringing Roger too, maybe next month we can bring Roger.
Yeah.
He's deeper.
No, I remember seeing this during the summer, when the first meeting after the summer, seeing the well issue, and I was surprised when I saw it again in the report. Oh, boy, still.
Good conversation. Any other questions or comments about the report from Roger? But thank you. That was a good catch. Next up is our discussion and potential vote on the facility study contract.
And Mike had to step out so I can take that. So just as a reminder, we put out an RFP. Two responded. We had joint meetings with the facility committee and the board. Thank you for your support. We did the 2 meetings. After the 2 interviews, presentations with the vendors, we did score sheets, and the process was if one of the firms was significantly favored by the group through a score sheet, then we would pursue reference calls on that one and come to this meeting with a recommendation. And that process did happen. The score sheets were overwhelming in favor of one of the candidates. Job-alike reference calls were made. Roger called facility director that worked through the firm. Amy called the business administrator worked with the firm. I reached out to the superintendent, even though when I was superintendent, I worked with the firm, so I could have been a reference call. They could have called me. Tom's trying to get a hold of the principal and did the job alike to finish those up. So we are very pleased tonight to recommend to the board that we award the contract to Harriman Architecture Firm. The committee and the score sheets by the board were overwhelming. Excellent reviews, excellent experience working with. And it's a maximum price award action. I think it was drafted in the Trello, so we just want to hold that price. And if there's any changes in the price, that means it would come here. So maximum price to their RFP. It's about $38,000 of the $60,000 that we had for the job like work. So it's good value, good experience, and an extraordinary professional and innovative presentation. So if the board agrees tonight, we can award that contract. I know Roger would be honored and privileged to give Harriman a call tomorrow and engage with them, their services, and then we sign a contract.
Question, so the quote came in under the amount we have reserved for it. What do we legally have to do with the remainder of the money? We hold it aside, or does it have to be returned to the town?
We have, I think approximately 5 years
Oh,
to use those funds in the board. So it all depends how the process goes. What Harriman produces, what we ask for in the RFP is not necessary. Is not, and so this is where the committee and the board will come together as we go. So the set of documents that Harriman will prepare for that fee, some districts, like the district I worked in, working with Harriman, brought that level of drawing and cost estimate to the town for a vote. To be clear, and there's no judgment. Roger is used to going the next level to the town vote and actually engaging a construction manager to professionally cost the design by the firm, and that's what we're doing at Hamburg's. So that extra $20,000 $22,000. Could be used to engage, still under the facility, right, still purpose of that warrant article, 100%. To engage a construction firm to do an actual estimated costing from a construction versus a design. That is another level of precision, another level of confidence, no question. So that would be the option of the board to engage another firm, and Harriman would help us with that. You know, you look at a construction firm, so that's what Roger and I and Amy and Mike have talked about, that gap. It's great to have if the board decides for the next level of pricing through a construction manager.
Okay, great. So it was written in such a way that we can continue to use the money to continue to explore the problem.
All part of the study.
Wonderful.
I would highly recommend that. It'll lessen the sticker shock. And you get the most up-to-date pricing, because usually by the time you go design and then you actually go to, there could be a big deviation from what they're costing, because you won't have as many changes in the labor rates, but the costing of the actual product material, that there's swings like crazy. So yeah, I highly recommend we consider it.
Yeah, absolutely, all because of the scope of the project, like for, and when we see the designs of these and where we are, it may be one of the three options, maybe three, but costing, you have an opportunity to spend that money to continue the work and get more precise costing if the board's interested.
Okay.
Thank you, town people are gonna want.
I think so too.
Yes. Yeah, which is fixed. And they will be able to tell you, which material could have longer lead times, and that also affects the costing as well. I know steel's been an issue. Although it hasn't been as bad as it has been the last couple of years, it's still, you're seeing long lead times, that impacts the pricing as well. So they'll be able to tell you, give you a good estimate on that, so, yeah.
But I also want to give you confidence that people have gone to the one on Harriman pricing and have been very comfortable with that level of expertise. We did it, you know, Hop did it, and the project, we got like, was absolutely within this, the project that we got exceeded their design for less than their cost. But that had something to do with bidding during COVID. Because there was so little work in COVID that contractors were so hungry that the bids came in so low because they wanted to keep the people doing work. But Harriman's a good firm. I'm very confident, Roger's very confident, of their experience and for this size project, and look forward to learning from.
What I was most impressed with was during the tour, the questions they asked me were all about kids. It was all about kids, it was all about programming around students. So it was very much student centered, so it was impressive, you know. That could get lost in the shuffle when it's construction and building and facilities but it was very much focused on students.
So do we need a voice vote or
Need action on it. Yeah,
so I'll take a motion to accept the nomination of Harriman Design.
I love it, I love it. We were trying to figure it out. It's not ink. I looked on their website. Harrison Design.
Harriman Design Architectural Firm as our building contract.
As a not to exceed pricing is with, as per their RFQ would be great.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Second from Ms. Lawrence, all those in favor? Passes 5-0. Tell Mr. Preston, no.
We'll make the call tomorrow and then we'll fire up.
It's exciting.
That is exciting.
Now, do we need to take a vote for the second option as well? For engaging,
No, that'll be another long time. Oh, we'll see their design will go there. But what you've done is you secured the 38,000 above that. So you secure the amount left of the warrant article to do a system uses. So by doing a not to exceed price, the only way the price is going up is if the board actually approves it.
change orders and stuff.
Yeah, it's like we came up with a fourth option and they wanted more money, we had to come back to you. For that, because you only awarded a not to exceed price. So the board has secured and locked in the price, which is a good thing. If it does go up, the only way it does if you say it's okay.
Now, who oversees it in our custody?
In the facility committee. We'll meet and we're gonna go visit some schools and we're gonna help work with them and design what a 7-8 looks like here. Take a look at enrollment and where will we put 2 or 3 extra bubble classrooms and what a preschool will look like here.
Thank you.
Be fun, it's gonna be some exciting, yeah. And it's all just looking in. Mike and I spent over an hour with a very well educated and experienced community member who helped us and also agreed with the evaluation of the committee of the architecture.
Excellent.
So we're utilizing our wonderful skills in the community.
Next up, we need to discuss food service pricing, and I believe, Christine, you gonna lead that conversation or no?
I think Steve
You want
will.
me to be there? You want-
Yeah.
Am I- You've always,
No, with,
you've always been involved with
With
it. so I-
Amy not being here and the work that we kind of like talked about at the previous board meeting. We're all kind of aware of what's kind of happening, but Steve had a conversation with Amy to prep for this. So Steve, if you want to kind of give him a summary of that. You know, and it's in board notes outlined pretty clean, you know, about what we're recommending, but let's talk about how we got there a little bit.
Sure, just to come back, this really came up during the revenue portion of the FY 25 budget process, and it came up that we are projecting a significant budget deficit in food service in the mid-20s. That, with concern, remember, we made some late changes in the budget process with revenue and all those expectations. So Amy worked with Crystal, who's a very talented, very knowledgeable food service director, who is doing some menu changes and some other resources trying to increase revenue. But because, if you remember going back, and this is where it came up, to last year's budget was over 8% increase. So we didn't include a subsidy for the food service program. Unlike this year, there's a $13,000 subsidy, and if you remember, to subsidize a possible deficit. So we don't have a cushion in this budget to cover. So we'll cover with fund balance, and we have some other things. So we talked about briefly is, do we want to increase prices? Remember, to raise a little revenue. Mont Vernon is an interesting, you're right, it's a small school, and you sell a lot of tater tots. I always talk about the tater tots there. So I'm just curious, where our prices were compared to other regional K6s, and that's New Boston and Dunbar are K6s, and I've included. So we were actually, we were right in the, we were 20 cents short of the highest breakfast and 15 cents short of the highest lunch compared. Both other K6s run food service deficit. It's not unusual. It's not mismanagement. It's, remember, this is highly regulated. It's very difficult to sell enough school lunches in this small school to pay for health insurance that's just, yeah. And so, but we wanted to see where were we in comp size district. And based on, and I looked, we sell about 350 meals, 150 breakfasts, 350, 450 lunches, depending on the month. So if we raised it by 20 cents for breakfast, we would still be where one of the smaller, and if we raise it by 15 cents lunch, we would still be comparable to the other K6s within 45 minutes from here. It's not like we're going up north. And it would give us raise about it was all projected about $1,000. Because remember, it's only about 3 months, because we're starting, it's March, April, May. June is a very small month. Crystal felt it was appropriate. She is also going to institute a cyclical menu, a 6-week menu in rotation that decreased waste. It also gets a better idea of over 6 weeks, you get more, if certain meals are selling more than others. And then she could repeat those and just kind of shelve the, trying to do a little bit more marketing or meeting with the kids at. She is advertising a food service way to provide healthy parties for kids. That's part of her promotions, trying to raise more revenue. Totally up to the board. It's not a lot of money. It's $1,000, but that matters. But if it basically starts next year, early next year, we'd be raising about $4,000, $4,000 or $5,000 for the year, combined with the $13,000 that we put in, hoping that the budget passes. We have about an $18,000 cushion to run with. So I would recommend doing this. It just, I'm not probably necessarily needing to raise the prices next year. We'll do it this year. And then we would raise about $4,000 or $5,000 total for FY 25 with a $13,000 cushion. Will be a much safer last year. And remember, we did this because last year's budget increase was really high. Again, it wasn't mismanagement. It's just, we didn't want to go up to over 9% last year. And that's
So-
what food service subsidy would have been.
The math comes out You said 350 lunches.
Ish, I'm a huge ish person.
170-ish days a year. That's like, 60,000 lunches. Right? Am I doing that right?
400 lunches a month, that's a month, it's 4,000 a
Oh,
year.
huh?
I was just, how much is 400 for?
You said,
I think it was a month.
oh, so each day, school day, how many school lunches are purchased?
I can find it for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
But I did it, when I did the math, it was about, this saves us $1,000. It increases revenue $1,000.
okay.
Between now and the end of the year.
Yeah, for the next 3 months, total 3 months.
No, I'm just trying to figure out what it's gonna be for the next year.
Well, I did, 3 months times 3.5,
So
about
4,000,
$4,000.
yeah.
And we have 13 as a subsidy, so 17 grand was would be the hedge against food service deficit next year. And that's why Amy's not ish, I'm an ish.
So that deficit is on top of the subsidy.
No, there's no subsidy this year, 26,000, there's no subsidy this year.
Oh, okay, so then, when was the last time you raised?
Not last year before last, I think last year we did not. It's not the worst thing,
No, I mean.
And we're still in
two
comms.
School years with,
and we've had all this increase. So, Tom would get it out, and, Crystal would get it out in her communication, and we start right after break. With the new prices at the board, so we do need a motion to an action item to change the prices as written.
Questions or comments?
Should it be a different amount? Up or down?
yeah, that's what I'm
I was thinking
too.
just take a quarter on both,
Yeah,
just go to 2 and 325. But
Yes. Basically, all I'm thinking is if the gap is 12,000, maybe we should get a little bit more of the way there than 4,000.
I hate being the highest one of the comps. I'd like to be at the comp, not higher than the comp. 315 is the comp.
yeah, but I think comp is one thing, but when you look from a budget, overall budget perspective, I hear what you're saying. But we haven't increased prices for what was 2 school years.
The year before that was free.
Yeah.
Like, we looked at a quarter. Going to 325 is a lot. Like, what you worry about is,
People aren't
if you
gonna wanna
reduce,
pay that.
and you reduce the number of meetings, then you have actually reduced your revenue.
Yeah,
It's a
no,
balance. So
I get it.
315 doesn't sound like much, 325 sounds like.
I mean, 10 cents doesn't sound like much of a difference, but times the whole year, it's actually pretty significant to our
Yeah.
budget, so I.
Can we revisit,
3.5 cents would be-
bump it up to 315 now and then revisit for next school year?
100%, you can absolutely do that. We can see where we're at, the 315 has no impact on the number of meetings. Then we could absolutely look at it in September.
See how the rest of the year goes, and then if we want to make a recommendation for the year starts, we can do that based on how people purchase lunches over the.
Yeah, I think coupled with some of the changes that she may be proposing, I think.
Right.
Yeah,
And there is a slight, remember, there's a slight personnel piece of this too, that we hope that is correct. Not disciplinary. Yeah, I mean, I really like the 2 and 315.
I mean, my vote would be to go up just a little bit for now and then revisit it
You got it.
again next school year.
We'll put it in a travel card for September to take a look, and we'll update at the end of the year too, what this means, and we get the impact on projected.
Right.
Do you think parents would be more concerned that we're bumping it twice, even though it's small amounts, than if we just did it once?
They don't remember it sometimes. You guys do.
plus we gotta make sure it's viable.
Yeah.
Right.
See what happens.
I mean, I hear it, but. Look, it's not going as high as potentially it can, and if you want to continue having a meal program in school. Unfortunately, it is what it is.
Another district in the SAU is dealing with similar stuff. I told a story that there was a high school that went off the National School Lunch Program. Did not receive a subsidy. That means there's no price restrictions, no quantity restrictions, but you're paying for free reduced lunch out of your pocket without the federal subsidy. It's a fascinating thing. Why I was a high school principal at the time. But they didn't stay on, they couldn't do it.
I mean, schools are not immune to the inflationary pressures everybody's stated.
Yeah, so we're not new, and we have to provide stuff that kids will eat. Yeah, we have to, it's not like Five Guys, where we only give what the kids want to eat.
Yeah.
And we provide stuff that they,
The macaroni was pretty good today.
And we had a lunch with the second grader event.
I showed the
I
green
saw a
beans.
number of parents eating it and enjoying it,
Did
so.
you do well in the green beans?
They did okay.
Not like the mac.
It's funny, most of the pictures in here with the kids eating a slice of pizza.
Pizza, that's how.
Almost everyone. Pizza. All right, I'll take a motion to accept the suggested price cost increase of a school breakfast at Mount Vernon Village School to $2 and a cost increase on the lunch to $3.15 effective March 4th, 2024.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Torres. All those in favor? Passes 5-0. You said September, we probably should visit.
Yeah, we'll give you a summary in
August.
June, but June will give you
Yeah,
a
we
post
gotta-
on this one, and then September we'll talk about next year. Cool beans?
I'm gonna jump over our board goals real quick because I know Mr. O'Keefe is here. And we will segue to public input 2 of 2.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Keefe?
I appreciate the courtesy. I just want to talk about something very important to me, that's taxes. I'm just kidding. Sarah Lawrence. Very last meeting, and I could not be here, so I just drove all the way from Boston. So I got a little token of appreciation.
It's a new car.
I'd like to present to you and thank you for your many years of service to this community. I can honestly say that your partnership on this board, when I served on it, and as you guys know, my heart is here, but my seat is down the hill. That I couldn't have done it without you. And I know this community is far better because you have actually given your time, your effort, your tears, your sweat, and your energy towards the kids in this community. And as a community member, I want to thank you. And I know I'm not alone, and I'm sure there's tons of people online right now watching. And there's a very common theme that Sarah Lawrence cares about Mount Vernon, cares about kids, and does it right. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Eckhoff. I appreciate it.
Thank you for.
And good luck on your board goals. You know, this is fun stuff.
I was hoping when we went behind the door, you'd come out and say, you get a car.
I don't have that much pull.
Good decision.
Good job, sir.
So now we will,
Sorry, I can see over, I don't have that problem seeing over the.
and we
carrying all your goodies
No joke.
to discuss and update our board goals.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to add this to the agenda. You know, when we had a little shift in the agenda, we thought we most certainly wanted to take the opportunity as the last time the board was coming together as a whole before we moved on to kind of update the work that the board's done. And so we put a kind of in the board notes, you could see a quite detailed update on the goals around communication, which I think this town does a really nice job of being in touch with their stakeholders and their taxpayers. There's numerous opportunities to do that, you know, from coming up and visiting to meeting with selectmen. We had a really nice session on the 30th of January. We had over 20 parents and, you know, and families join us for a meeting, and we kind of reviewed the goals that Tom had, how they connected to the SAU goals, to the budget. And to have 20 people, that was quite promising and encouraging. And we've got some dialogue after the meeting for people asking more questions. We made a plug for school board openings and budget committee openings, and see where that lands. But that was really great, and then I know you guys have something planned for this Saturday, on the morning to talk, so I think there's a lot of good bit of work has been done. I'll skip over goal 2 for a second, we'll come back to it, and it's a little bit longer. You take a look at the work around, for security and safety. There's an update of some of the stuff that Tom's done, some of the things that, we've done in partnership with Tom, about getting, people ready and trained. We have a safe grant out there that we've been approved for, and it's potentially substantial, that we can do some work with. So, feel really good about that. And then we just talked a little bit about facility and the work that you guys have worked with Steve and Roger on that process. So I feel like it's been a quite a productive year, for the goals that you've outlined, as they really were consistent between previous years. And to me, I really think it's good business, it's sharp, and that when you keep the goals broad, and what changes is how they evolve and the action steps of it. That provides a consistent environment for students and families and staff. They know how things are connected, from board goals to building goals to SAU goals. So I do appreciate that. And before we talk about goal 2, if there's any questions or people want to have any comments on goals 1, 3, and 4, we can chat a little bit about that before we get into goal 2, which is a little more data driven and academic performance.
I'm just really proud of the work that's been done on those. I mean, it's a lot. A lot. Number 4, huge undertaking there, and the rest of them, I mean, certainly, a lot of effort has gone in, so I think it's, good work all around.
Thank you. Good work, good work. And, with this, part of the communication and the goal is, Peter's pretty active behind the scenes, making sure that we're lined up and scheduled and keeping everyone updated. So that helps when you're active and you're in tune. So thank you, appreciate that. So let's do this. Let's talk a little bit about it. I'm gonna kind of turn this over to Christine, and we'll kind of add some color commentary towards it, but we're gonna kind of, turn it over there. You should be able to click on the link to get into the report that, we've produced. But Christine, I'll turn it over to you, and away we go.
Yeah, and I'll just share big picture related to goal number 2 on monitoring student achievement in literacy and math. And Tom and I work at a pretty deep level with the data and work alongside the teachers. Tom, any of our assessment data he reviews routinely with teachers, his MTSS team, grade level meetings, and we are looking at it at a student level. So that's always an important thing, just to know how deeply involved Tom and I both are in this work. Our New Hampshire SAS data from last spring was shared with the board during the October SAU meeting. We had a big data presentation at that SAU meeting. I also presented in October at the Mont Vernon meeting an evaluation of our Bridges math program. So we looked deeply at our math assessment data at that point as well. During those 2 data presentations, a wonder came up, as it has in some years in the past. I've prepared data for the board around our 7th and 8th grade students at AMS. So the question was how, what does that trajectory look like when students are in AMS, and what do the New Hampshire SAS results look like? So for the report, the first section is English language arts, and I shared with you the grades 3 through 6 New Hampshire SAS data, so you could see that. And to see really historical for students, and then the 7th and 8th grade. So if you look for our ELA data, there's definitely, with one of our cohorts, there is a pretty big shift when students get to 7th grade, but our 8th grade data is really interesting. That cohort has shifted and moved around every year. That data has been really inconsistent. So if you look at the yellow boxes, in 3rd grade, 50% of students were proficient. In 4th grade, 66%. We didn't have testing data for our COVID year. And then in 6th grade, 75%. And then by 8th grade, 54%. So really all over the place. So that's pretty hard to pinpoint and really figure out exactly what might be causing that shift. Again, we are dealing with pretty small cohorts of students. So what I did for this, I did break down for you, just so that you can see. So for example, last year's 8th grade students, 15 students remained consistent with their scores. So there was not an increase or a decrease in their performance level from the previous year from 7th grade. 6 students gained a performance level and 5 students slid a performance level. So while we had a lot remaining the same, some gaining and then some sliding for that fit to that's representing that 54%. And again, that's been a pretty inconsistent cohort, so hard to figure out exactly what might be causing that. For the 7th grade students, that 55% of Mont Vernon students, they were a more consistent cohort, typically around the 72 or 75% of students proficient. So that was a shift in performance for them, and 14 students remained consistent for their ELA scores. 2 students gained and 10 students slid. So that, that definitely is a change that we want to be aware of and looking into. So what I also did was I looked at NWEA reading scores for those cohorts of students, and was there a big shift in performance also represented by NWEA? And it really depended on, and I looked at both of the cohorts, it depended on the years. Some years we had a big shift in performance, or not big, but there was a shift in performance that was significant. And other years there were, increases. Some slid, sometimes it increased. So it's a funny thing to track, because I can't quite put my finger on, they're always decreasing here, or any trend that we're seeing with that data. I'm happy to provide more, or if we want to do a deeper dive into, this cohort with that NWEA data. But, looking at it, there really wasn't a consistent trend. So then we started looking at, well, what could be causing a shift? Could it be testing environment, for example? Could that be impacting students? So we talked a little bit about that testing environment and testing schedule. In Mont Vernon, they have very small classes, so they're also testing in smaller groups. At AMS, they have larger classes, they're testing in larger classes. Also a function, once you get to 7th grade, and this is for all of our students, they go from having 2 teachers to having 4 teachers. And they may not be taking the math test with their math teacher, could be their science teacher giving the math test. So just the difference in that testing schedule. Also, Mont Vernon tends to break testing up. Math is usually in 1 week and reading is in another week. Sometimes reading and writing are separate, where AMS has traditionally had testing all in 1 week at the same time. So students could be fatigued with scores. So we've really gone through a lot and looked at that. One thing with our writing, as Tom mentioned, our writing New Hampshire SAS window is the 1st and 2nd week of March. That's because they're rolling out a new writing prompt and they need time to actually have scores for that writing prompt. So because of that, everyone across the state, across all of our schools, will be testing writing separate, which I think is really going to help our students. While it's earlier in the year, I don't love, they haven't had as much instruction in writing. I think it's going to be helpful to pull that writing, where students can often get fatigued, out of the week in which New Hampshire SAS is occurring. So we've looked at testing schedules. We've also worked, Steve and I have worked with Kristen on how do we communicate the importance of this assessment. These are middle school students. It's a function of middle school. This test doesn't matter to me. So we've kind of gone through all of those pieces to try to figure out, how do we better support students? The other thing, we've worked hard with the teachers across the SAU on making sure that they're doing enough of the modular assessments, which are really mini assessments that get students used to that platform, the New Hampshire SAS platform. So that's something we've been continuing to work with teachers on, just so students are comfortable and confident. So I'm interested to see this year's scores and be able to separate them out and see if we're seeing any more trends for that. But math looks pretty similar. Again, that same yellow cohort, very inconsistent all of their time through Mont Vernon. And again, looking, their 3rd grade was 36%, 4th grade 43%, then a strange 70% right after COVID. And then all of a sudden, then a 33%. So, that's a significant shift, but more similar to where they were in 3rd grade, which it is, a little odd, and that it would be such a significant shift in performance there. And again, the kind of purpley color they've been a cohort that's kind of moved all over the place. They had a 40%, then a 56, then a 64, and a 33. So I don't know how much of this is representative of their actual performance levels. And one thing we can do too, if we wanted to dig even deeper, is to look at projected proficiency on NWEA and compare that to actuals on New Hampshire SAS as well, just to see, is one test showing us something very different than the other assessment. So it was more, this data brought up questions for us and some even action items just around, are there any other transition pieces? What does our assessment schedule look like? And those kinds of pieces, which I think could be helpful in us trying to minimize some of those external factors that could be influencing student performance on the assessment.
A couple of other things that I know Christine has done is actually gone child by child with some of the specialists here. And we've got some really unexpected data by people. One thing that Christine talks a lot about, Tom, too, is how well we know the kids at Mont. So it is very easy for Charlene or Maggie to actually go through every single student. They know every single student. And they did that. And there were some things and
Yeah, Charlene said, no, that student shouldn't be a 2, they should have been a 3. I don't know why, but so it was interesting.
And we'd like to talk to some kids. Why? I'm curious about, and I think 7th and 8th graders can articulate, you know, if we sit down, why, whether it's with Chris or me or, you know, Christine, or just, I'm curious. Because it's, there's some unexpected, is it environmental, is it test fatigue, is it? Well, I always worry, I said this last year, I said it at the SAU board, I said it to some community members, I always worry about how much we can do from one test one day.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Mike is, he's talking, let's not get too high or get too low, let's use data to ask questions and try to improve. And not be, the sky is falling on one piece of data one day. And I had, you know, as a family, in my family, we had some standardized testing days on one of my daughter's worst days. And I tried to do desperately not her to go in to take it, but she wanted to go in, and she took it on a very emotional day. And I was always said, so if 3 or 4 kids have something going on, we're gonna make huge conclusions about the effectiveness of program, you know what I mean, on one day, one time. I'm really trying to, I appreciate Christine's leadership, it's about it, we've just been asking questions and trying to figure it out. And that's the role, it's not, you know, it's not indictment or anything, so let's figure it out. And that's my view, I appreciate Mike's. Data is data, just use it to get better.
Do we think the shift in the math in particular, when they get to the middle school is, I mean, like Tom called out earlier, math here is pretty unique and spectacular, and that 33% in both grades, not so spectacular, considering that they need to thrive here. Like,
There wasn't this data
like
accurate.
the change in environment, that, you know, they go from a place where they are uniquely nurtured to a place where it's more of a challenging environment with getting individualized support.
And more stimuli, it's very stimuli-rich environment.
Do they begin algebra in 7th grade at Amherst Middle School or 8th?
Well, I mean, technically algebra, we start in 1st grade.
Okay.
But, you know, the high school algebra 1 class, essentially for some students starts in 8th.
Okay, so it's not a 7th grade applied thing where it's an extra jump of understanding?
No, that's a good question though. Some students might be experiencing both 7th and 8th grade concepts in 7th grade because they are on an accelerated pathway. But that should support students and those are usually the students who are ready for that acceleration and faster pace. So those scores should show that.
But they don't?
Well, and you know what, I didn't pull out the 8th grade students that were in the accelerated course, and are those, they should all have
Question.
level 4 New Hampshire SAS scores.
Yeah, let's take a look at that.
Yeah, I can look at that and
Okay.
see.
That's a great question. This is what data's for.
Yeah,
In talking with the kids, because when Christine, Mike and I saw it, 33%.
And it would be worthwhile also using the data point of what percentage of our students are in the accelerated program in each grade. And
we look
how
at that
many
every year. Yeah, we typically share that. Most years we even share with the board. Typically, Mont Vernon is, you know, equal representation, if not more, than Amherst for their population, the percent of students who,
Yeah.
are, ready for accelerated math.
We will definitely look at doing the same thing as part of this year's data.
Yeah.
So we're,
So I appreciate the opportunity to share data, right? We are just gonna be very upfront with it and direct, like, hey, it is what it is. And when you look at data, you wanna use it to ask questions about your organization and about the experience that kids are getting. And, walking in here today, sharing with Jess, like, this is as quiet and peaceful and calm of a place that you can go in public school. And then you go from here and you go to a very typical environment. It changes the experience for kids and it changes how they interact with their content and knowledge acquisition and skill acquisition, and changes socially. And I think it's worth exploring, right? And I think as we talk about using data, and being even about it, addressing what questions it presents, and then looking a little bit deeper at times. So you'll see us come back at some point. We just gotta timeline this out. Kind of looking at sixth grade here, and then looking at eighth grade. It's like a culmination, a little bit, as Christine says, deeper. We'll get into NEWA, we'll get into Ames, we'll get into local assessment, get into SAS, we'll get into some, potentially some subjective questions about talking to kids and teachers. So you'll get a little bit more of a full picture of the experience here and then at Amherst Middle School. But for me, it's gonna raise questions about the experience that kids receive here and then the experience that they receive at the other places. It's two-sided, right? And so I appreciate the work that's been done. I appreciate we definitely wanted to share it out at this meeting. We thought it was important to. And as we get questions, from people, I think it's just, we'll have the same type of message. It's gonna raise some points of interest and we don't try not to get too high and too low on year-to-year data or fall to spring data. I do think if there's trends for 2, 3, 4 years, I think the urgency starts, spike up a little bit. But like, as we go into every 6 months or year to year, we try to just take the data for what it's worth. And, you'd be amazed on how kids look at standardized testing, whether it's NEWA or SAS. It is not the same experience that people think it might have been when people sit for the SAT or they sit for a PSAT back in the late 90s or, earlier, and so we got some things to do there and I appreciate the opportunity presented.
So when's the next wave of testing?
We have,
Whether
writing
it
in
is or
March,
NEWA?
we have, winter NEWA has just been finished. We have to look at that a little bit. And then, we have a writing SAS assessment in March. And then we have, the May testing window with ELA and math for the spring. And then that information, one of the things that we're knocking around is when to present that data to you. And we think it's a June, it could be a summer meeting. It might not be ready for June when they get it back to us. So it could be, as we're planning some revisioning stuff and the goal setting for this, to present some of the data to you guys in the summer at a summer meeting. But we're just trying to find the rhythm, the appropriate rhythm to interact with data and present it to. So, but there's some other things we have to wait on when we get it back, take a look at it, so.
For me, like, good to jump in.
You can, man.
For me, and our staff, so, Mike just mentioned. When I look at our data as a school, there's a lot of ways you can look at this. All in all, I'm proud of our achievement of our students, their experience as they go through. But there's a lot of things that we look at in terms of NEWA serves a very specific purpose, and that assessment and the data, the feedback that gives us is very specific and purposeful around the instruction that's happening and the growth that those individual students are making. And so that for us internally is very useful around curriculum, around instructional strategies, around scope and sequence of the instruction and the curriculum. It also is very helpful around our supports. So when we look at our MTSS model and tier 2 students who are receiving support, maybe for math and reading, we want to make sure, and to Superintendent Barry's point, we want to turn around the data as fast as we can. So the students took NEWA 2 weeks ago. We started analyzing that data as soon as it came out in our grade level teams. Charlene and I met today about math. Maggie and I met this week about reading. We're going through literally student by student, and that is a luxury of a small school. But we literally go through student by student. We have a threshold of 60th percentile. And then we have students on the other side of that who are achieving very high. And what are we doing for those students? So these conversations are deep. And one of the things that we look at is trends. I'm a firm believer in the story of each student and the story over time. And students aren't widgets. They're not a number, but over time, what does their experience as a learner look like? Is Charlene involved? Is Maggie involved? Is special ed involved? Classroom teacher, and we're all in on each student. And I think I've said this in terms of MTSS, we don't have an MTSS team. I think I said this at a meeting, but we rebranded that to a Falcon support team because we're all doing MTSS. MTSS is not just tier 2 students that need support. MTSS starts in tier 1 in the classroom teachers. So yeah, I mean, the state test is an important piece, is an important feedback. But there's a whole story behind all the data that we have, and to me, it's an urgency. It's not, let's wait until, a month from now when we have an early release and we can dig in. It's no, we have the data, we're gonna start today. And we've been doing this now since the NEWA data became available, the reading data became available pretty much right after we took it. And even before I meet with the teachers and I meet with each grade level team, I meet with Maggie and Charlene, special ed, they've already started analyzing it. So when I go to their meetings, we're already in it. So anyway, that's my ramble, but the luxury of, I shouldn't say luxury. When we talk about, and Sarah, I know you have put a huge emphasis on ratios since you've been on the board. And you cannot ignore the fact that we are able to personalize for our students because of the ratios, because of the work that this board has done. And I think that is a huge component to what we are able to do here, because that's been a priority. So I recognize that, and I know that is not the case everywhere else, not even in our SAU, just everywhere else. So. And if you have any questions for me,
I don't,
there'll be more to come.
yeah, and I don't want to hit the panic button, but these numbers for AMS are alarming. So I would, and I know you're on it, but I would charge you that we can't wait. We gotta figure out, and the next, I'm just throwing ideas out, the next round of testing, do you make a concerted effort to the point of classrooms are bigger, there's more people testing, as to how do we break them up? So there's only 10 people in each room taking tests. I know you need monitors. I don't know the mechanics of that, but if we're seeing a significant drop in our students, which we are, in that 7th, 8th grade experience in the testing environment, what if we said, okay, for this year's testing, we're gonna try to recreate a smaller classroom environment and see if that improves scores or not? It's just, it's that, I don't know what else to say. I understand what you're all saying about, let's not hit the panic button on one set of data. I got it. But to drop 50% in a score and be below the state average, that's not,
I think we're all a little panicked.
that's not what we're used to.
It's not,
One
We're
moment,
not happy.
one
with
moment
this
at a time.
I know.
Do we know
Not
of
expected.
similar elementaries that are experiencing the same phenomenon, something similar to our structure?
I mean, across the state, I sit on the New Hampshire assessment task force, and, across the state, scores decline in middle school. So that's a typical trend, but you see that through looking at the state average, you can see that throughout the grades. A lot of that probably is students being middle schoolers, maybe not being as deeply engaged on that assessment, not seeing the value of that assessment, but
even with that,
even with that, I mean, this
Yeah.
is
you still see
When we take it through 5, it's test attrition. They don't take it in 9th grade. I mean, if they took it 9th grade, we might see it there too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think it's worth exploration. I don't know if we don't know if it is. Just don't know. We gotta find out.
And so for me, you're allowed to be panicked and you're allowed to instruct us to go do stuff and go look into this and find out the reason. And we'll go back out. That's what we'll do. It's fair.
I think we should seriously look into bringing our students back to Mont Vernon for 17th grade.
And the,
Good idea.
Yeah, but I think you're just delaying the inevitable, because at some point, they're still gonna have to transition, so even though
Right.
we keep them here, there's still gonna be an environment where there's much more stimulant. So while I hear that, I just think you're just pushing the can, kicking the can down the road.
It's an interesting question we can find out, like, Dunbarton goes to 7th grade at Bow Memorial School, just like this. Do they get a drop when they go to Bow Memorial School? New Boston goes to, we think they go to Mount,
Yeah.
right?
yes. it is.
Those are the comps, K6 is very similar.
Very
It's,
different
you know, when I
others.
drive home, I go through these little towns, I go to bigger schools. I know lots of people in Bow, I'll find out and we can call, I'm interested, is this something that's happening more now?
how long does it take a student to take that? Or not how long, but maybe how much time are they allotted to take the test?
Unlimited time, students can choose, but a lot of times, you know, they're gonna see all the laptops closing next to them and they're gonna
So
wanna finish out too.
I'll call out some experience for my child who just started going to AMS from here. And it's a significantly longer commute because they're not going to school in their town. So their day is significantly changed, so they're having 45 minutes each direction more of a commute because of the busing that we have going to stop throughout Amherst on the whole way to the school.
Yeah.
So, you know, if on testing days, every parent drove their child all the way there, and so it was only 15 minutes in the car instead of an hour on the bus. There's other factors to talk about, right?
Yeah.
What's the average bus ride time in Mont Vernon proper? K6, what are you on the bus for?
I have no idea.
I'm just curious, I didn't think that it was that much longer to go to Amherst, I just didn't think.
But we're the first stop usually on a bus that's gonna go through both towns.
Because when I rode Amherst buses, because I was bored, wanted to ride buses. It was, I couldn't believe how short the ride was. I would have been hop, it was an hour and 15, hour and 20. All buses that I rode about half of them were done in 45 minutes in the afternoon. But those, to be honest, those are Amherst proper ones.
Yeah, but if you think about it.
Yeah.
45 minutes were the end of the
Yeah.
ride.
I know, I didn't realize, yeah. It's very.
So maybe it's similar in these other towns. You look at it, you'll see if they have that drop off.
Yeah.
And then think about like, how far are they from
Yeah,
the school?
I appreciate the questions and we'll come back.
And I've got one more, and again, it's just me spinning. I don't know how you can do it, or if you can do it, but could you pick four students?
Yeah.
That
Slid.
one that slid, or maybe one that didn't, one that it was flat and then slid. And have them retake the test in a control.
Yeah, the state won't let us do that. We could with NWEA, because it's our own, it's a district assessment, that's up to us if we want to retest a student, and as long as the family, you know, gives the okay, if it's outside or typical for a retest. But we couldn't on a state assessment. You know, the other thing too is, you know, I can come back and work with Mike and Steve too with, you know, even more information to try to, you know, talk to students, get some more information, get a deeper look. You know, I shared a preliminary list with Charlene and had some good conversations with her. But you know, one thing that, and I shared this with Steve when we were going over this and chatting. One thing that Mont Vernon did this year that was really interesting that I got to sit in on, and it was one of those things I was literally getting teary, listening to the teachers. Every teacher passed their students off to the next grade teacher on an in-service day by sharing information about that student. And the other teacher was sitting there taking furious notes and listening, and just both, and especially when it was a STEM humanities, I sat in on fifth grade transitioning to sixth, and like the teachers were even emotional, like, oh, with Johnny, make sure you do this, and we didn't realize this until like halfway through the year, and this is what you need to do, and Mary needs to sit on this side of the room, and make sure this is set up this way to support this student. And it was just amazing, like, as I said to Steve, like, these teachers know these kids inside out and backwards. And part of it is, I don't think we can discount the STEM humanities model. They have half their day with these kids. When they go to AMS, the teachers have them for an hour. So and there's 4 teachers, so the teacher, and they have 20-something kids in their class. So there's just no way, even if they went down the hill, the only way is if we continue that STEM humanities model through 8th grade, which is getting harder and harder, with more challenging content to be able to accomplish that. But they're getting a double transition. They're getting the transition to a larger school. I didn't even think about the transportation piece. And then they're getting a transition from a 2-teacher model to a 4-teacher model. So those teachers don't have as much time with the students. And we've never tried to do some sort of like, here, I'm passing this student off to you conversation. So Steve and I were even chatting, Amherst has an additional in-service day starting next year. Is there any sort of, something we can do where even our 6th grade teachers go down to meet with 7th grade teachers on that day for part of the day, to provide some context for those students, like they've been able to do here.
I mean, that conversation does happen between the teachers and the counselor at AMS, but teacher to teacher, it is a different level. It is. And we do that, that is a routine every year here, as far as that goes, that transfer.
And you have the benefit, no matter what, I mean, here, every teacher knows every kid. And they're popping in to see last year's teachers and say, hey, I'm stuck on this, Mary's struggling with this, how did you help her last year? And that doesn't quite happen. There is a kind of gulf between, but if there's some way to even improve the transition piece, we're wondering if that could have an impact here. So that was even a point of our discussion, and this doesn't feel good. What else should we be doing to support?
Thank you. Again, you're on it. We'll be asking.
Appreciate the level of discussion, so thank you.
Yeah.
To the question about busing, it just so happens, excuse me, the bus that I pulled up was Grand Hill, first stop to Souhegan AMS, 7:37 to 8:22. So that's the first stop to the drop off.
That's the scheduled, however,
Right.
there has been a sub bus driver because of maternity leave for the last 3 months. So the bus has been taking 10 to 15 minutes longer than the scheduled drop.
So it's almost an hour.
So
Public input two. I know we had Mr. O'Keefe speak, but do we have anybody online? Because we didn't ask earlier. I didn't ask.
We do not, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any non-public needs?
No non-public, and, if there's any questions on the board notes, I can take them now before we adjourn.
You want me to ask Jess or do you?
Oh, yeah, you can go ahead.
Just curious about the.
Great. Yeah.
If you can speak to it.
Yeah, no, so, throughout SAU 39, we've received, this year, 62 right to know requests from the beginning of the school year to now, 59 from one particular community member. We just want the boards to know that it's happening. You might hear that out there, you might hear some stuff, around that. It's a lot of budget, audit, meeting minutes, meeting conversations, master schedules, things like that. For various years, various, groups. But I think the thing that I wanted people to know, and I'm not shy about saying this, it is incredibly time consuming to meet the needs of right to know requests. And I think it's an indicator of the volatility of not so much this community, SAU 39 community, with divisiveness, distrust, and we're working through that, and the only way we know how is go to work every day, the best you can, treat people really well, do your job, address the issues you need to. And what I think something needs to be working on is people have to understand their lanes, their roles and responsibilities. And, I was talking to a group that, you guys got a little bit of information, but there's some boards that right to know requests are coming in. We haven't shared all that information with the board yet. For example, like NEWA reports. And I have to submit the right to know, but it doesn't feel right if I haven't submitted it to you guys. So we're in a funky little spot, on how we do these things. And I just thought boards need to know what we're grappling with.
So is this district specific, is this in our district or?
I think there's a couple things that have come over, like the budget or board committees, meetings. I have to look exactly.
Some SAU wide requests related to the SAU board, for example, but so it.
Which you're involved in.
Yeah.
But nothing directly explicit to. And,
Okay.
I think it's important to just, with the time consuming nature of these requests, just understanding, the busyness at the SAU at times. I think it can be helpful just to, understand the scope and the volume of the work.
Is there a window we need to respond to these requests?
yeah, there's some procedural rules around it. So when you get an email, like within the first 5 days, you gotta answer the email and receive it and give the requester an indicator of when they might get that. And that's more of a kind of art for for me, like what's reasonable with what they've asked. So usually anywhere from 7 days to 30 days, depending on the request. Some have been kicked out a little bit. So you just gotta communicate, you got it, when you get it, and when you're gonna give it to them. And, so there's that.
Is there some way we could, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
provide a standard protocol response regardless of the request? And you will hear it rather than tailoring it to the specific question.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I get a little more,
To give you some.
to formulate, I think this is very unique. And so I put some things out to some people around the state to see if they've encountered the same type of things. Talked a little bit about a form that people have to fill out, right? And what that looks like systemically. And then, see, if we want to, put some of these on websites and, have it more systemic of when you do, you put in a right to know request. There's also some legislative that's active that could change the rules coming forward too, so we're actually a little volatile with some of the legislation that's flying around, and so that could change it. So right now, we're just learning, and so, we've all endured this. We've all endured moments where at the SAU, where we're working at a frenetic pace and, we don't get, you guys are very flexible with board notes. Some days you get it 72 hours in advance and sometimes you get it 24 hours. Sometimes meetings are scheduled well in advance and then we're panicking, and scheduling the meeting the day before the meeting actually happens. So we wanted to know that we have our daily operations of the SAU in the 3 districts, but then we also have some one-off type stuff that's taking things and, for example, I left the meeting to go make a phone call to another board chair. If something happened with a meeting, right? So it's just volatile and I appreciate people's patience and understanding. If there's any questions that we can ever ask or answer, we will. But overall, it's a complicated place right now. I'm lying to you. Man.
Question about the right to know, items. Are they things that you could have made public in advance? And do you still have to respond if the information is already public?
Yeah, you have to respond. That's a great question. And sometimes, it could be simple like, well, I'm gonna send you the link to the website that you have access to. So thanks. You know what I mean?
And we do that, that's
And
how we
then-
respond.
Okay. And so there's a lot that you can, not a lot, but there's some that you can respond to that simply.
Okay.
And then there's some that are just more time consuming.
are there, basically what I'm asking is procedurally, are there items where you could decide to just make it public somewhere in advance?
Yeah,
Where there's no drawback for you deciding to like post something up somewhere, even if it's in advance of presenting it to us. I mean,
yeah, no, there's been, some thought and conversation about as we evolve our organization and we add in the communications liaison. And we add in, someone managing social media and the website will work directly as they partner with Chelsea, right? And, that can help some things, and we have some thoughts on what that could look like. And so that could help, but with that, we discuss that,
Okay.
as the years go.
But even with that, you still need to respond to the request. That's so even though it's on the public domain, you still have to say, well, this is where you can find it. And it's not like you could ignore it because it's still sitting there. You can come back and say, well, you never responded on the RSA.
Yeah, and that's a 3-minute email as opposed to.
But when you get,
You're exactly right.
a critical mass of these, it's taking away time from.
I can't believe this is gonna be standard practice, for me, I hope it's not, but I can't believe that it will be, and will continue to be.
Well, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. So, I mean,
I like that answer.
We started an ombudsman, right to know ombudsman in the state. And last year we had 2 complaints that right to know requests weren't weren't fulfilled appropriately. So we had 2 complaints to the ombudsman last year. And the ombudsman, I think we were 2 of 33 complaints, was the SAU 30. Things have changed. The interpretation years ago was it becomes a public record when the board sees it. Now, if it is a record created by someone who is a public servant, it is a record. Because before it was only if the board got it, then anybody could get it, but if the board didn't get it. But we've had right to know requests about reports we received. That even, so we actually were giving some, not this board, but we actually had to give it to some community members before the board receives it, which is really out of order.
which is crazy because how can you formulate an intelligent response when the board hasn't even been.
There's been a lot of pressure on, in New Hampshire especially, 91A, right to know. And it's just, we do engage, last year when I was doing this, we had lots of right to know regarding SAU case, lots of right to knows, and that was a fee with an attorney. To make sure we do the right thing, but it's not the work that all of us on this side of the table sign up. We sign up to improve educational achievement, ensure the student experience is the best, but we've been navigating, not change the world stuff lately in SAU 39, but we're hopeful.
Maybe you need to add a staff member. Add that as a budget line.
Yeah.
Because there's a cost associated with it.
Districts have done that.
There's time associated. with
Part-time
it.
right to know responder.
And if people don't see that there is a cost, either taking away your time from the job that you're supposed to be doing. And putting it into something else, I mean, maybe you need to add a budget line and add a position.
I appreciate that. Has crossed our minds a little bit on how to get sassy to work with that. And
Last meeting, waking minutes.
Communications. The number of hours outside of the workday that the people on this side of the table, and you guys as well, but it's more than I think some of the community members who are pushing certain agendas understand of the service, and they get beyond the contractual day. Now, I'm not talking about board meetings, this is contractual, I'm talking about just early morning, late nights. So, but,
I think assigning a cost to that helps people understand the impact of what they're asking.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
I appreciate the opportunity to, share it with you and field some questions. I think it's important that you're aware of how things tie together and we can have any conversation at any time. For me, so I appreciate that. So I'm good, Peter.
Before I take a motion to adjourn, I just want to thank everybody that stepped up for the deliberative and pinch hit for the question and answer and the presentation. Obviously, there were multiple people that couldn't be there, but I appreciate everybody doing a fabulous job.
We crushed it.
Selling.
Like, hey, the tone, that was a good night, that was a good night. That was a good night. Yeah, that was a good night.
No,
And I got pizza on the ride home. We made it.
Yeah, the number of questions we got from the public was overwhelmingly from former school board members.
but I'm sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, so I will take a motion to adjourn at 7:13.
I'll make said motion.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Lawrence, all in favor?